it in the schools, bring the civics back. Call to action.
Solution. There is only one solution. Communist revolution.
Communist revolution.
There is only one solution.
There is only one solution. Communist revolution.
So in today's video, ladies and gentlemen, there was another No Kings protest that took place in several cities across the country. And of course, it brought out all the deranged, demented, delusional liberals and Democrats crying about Trump being a king. And you had a bunch of these far-left politicians. For example, in Minnesota, you had Ilhan Omar and Tim Walz. In Chicago, you had Brandon Johnson and others who showed up basically melting down. And all of this is just really just a prime example of how hypocritical and deranged the left really is. And so, as always, we got to break it all down. Don't forget, if you do enjoy the content, smash that thumbs up button. That's the best way to let me know to stay locked in for future videos. Subscribe to the channel and make sure you have all turned on for your notifications. That way YouTube never forgets to let you know when I drop. Let's get into it.
It seems like there's a lack of diversity here today. That it's mostly people who look like you and I, and I just
It is not for black people, for people of color to get out on the street. They're at risk when they do that. If anybody's going to get arrested here, it's going to be a black person. It is not safe for them, and they don't need to participate. We need to walk in their name.
Could you tell me what the difference between a king and a president is?
Right now, no.
You don't know the difference between a king and a president?
No, I do. I'm very clear what the difference is, but right now it's very unclear.
It's unclear. Do you believe that Donald Trump is a king?
No.
You don't believe he's a king?
No, I
So,
think he thinks he's a king. There's a big difference.
oh, but this is a no kings rally, correct? So you guys are protesting for no kings,
Yes, we are.
but you don't believe he's a king.
No, we don't.
So it's a little confusing right now.
I was just wondering, like, what you guys do.
Sure, so we're just against U.S. intervention, so we're against the U.S. being involved in war in Iran, we're against the U.S. Funding the war against Gaza, we're against the U.S. being involved in Venezuela and Cuba, and so that's the focus of our organization.
I see. What's going on with the war right now? Like, why is it happening?
The war in Iran?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I've been tabling all day, and I'm pretty fried.
It's a lot. It's hot. It's hot. All right. Thank you.
Now, you would think if you're going to show up, set up a table, and waste your day supporting a cause, that you would at least know a little something about what you're supporting, right? But apparently, that's not necessary. All they need to know is that it's about the president and standing against him, and these people will do anything without having a clue what it's about. And this seems to be the thing with these protests. A bunch of angry, geriatric boomers crying, and then a few young people out there sounding like they really don't know what they're talking about. Like this, for instance. Check it out.
Well, okay, so waking up every day as a black woman is such a political act. So that in itself is exhausting, but like the fight never stops. So protesting this, it's like, hey, I still have to do this. So I can't wait until this shit is behind us and we don't have to worry about people dying in ICE custody. We don't have to worry about losing our rights as women, as black people, as any marginalized group. So, gotta represent.
Yeah. And how are those rights being taken away right now?
How are they being taken away right now? Literally just like, I have teachers as friends. And they are struggling to try to educate our kids in classrooms.
Yeah.
So because of what this administration is doing, black women are pretty much being murdered in medical professions when we go to seek medical care, and that research is being defunded. We have to make sure that we are putting in the work and stopping these things.
You can't make this up. She said, waking up as a black woman is such a political act. What in the actual hell are you talking about? What about waking up as anyone, as any ethnicity, is a political act? And when you ask a very direct question to these people on how Trump is taking away her rights, she starts talking about not being able to teach in schools. Teach what? Brainwash kids with your woke ideology? And this idea that what is unlimited genders? These people's entire identity is based on a false reality they have chosen to accept. And of course, there is the white savior complex with white liberal women that they have where they feel it's their duty to rescue black people and save minorities. Take a listen.
Truly, I mean, I view myself, just after my friend going, as a white woman, this is the least I can be doing. There are so many marginalized voices in this country that need to have a safe space to be able to be who they are. And I have that privilege to be able to come out here and stand up for something that's right. So that's why I'm out here.
Yes. As someone who looks the way that we do, there's nothing better we should be doing on a Saturday. Yes. We have the privilege. Yeah. We better use it.
Wow. Wow. And so basically, it's never fear. Liberal white women are here to save the oppressed minorities. Oh, we're going to save you, minority people. We'll save you. How condescending is that? She's the elite, and any non-white person is beneath her and deserves her charity. It's funny because if that's the case, where are all the liberal white women at when it comes to speaking out about crime in the black community? How often do we hear about them speaking out about that? Where are all the white women at protesting and marching there? Their voice could surely be used there, right? If they actually cared. It's just funny to me. It's really hilarious because these people are delusional. Like this guy, this is funny. Check this one out, this protester. Check it out.
Stand on the grass if you love Donald Trump. Stand on the sidewalk if you love Donald Trump. Hold the sign if you love Donald Trump.
Don't get into it.
Hold the sign if you love Donald Trump.
Don't give him the status.
Hold the sign if you love Donald Trump. Throw the sign if you love Donald Trump. Drop the sign on the ground if you love Donald Trump. Trump is still your president. You're not a veteran to me. Give it back. Give back your service to your country. Give it back. You're not a veteran. You don't support America. You're not a veteran. Follow me if you love Donald Trump.
Right here. I'm not in front of you.
Get in front of me if you love Donald Trump. Well, then I gotta get back here then. Come on, dude. Got my fan club behind me today. Veterans really love Trump.
Yeah. And so along with the protesters, you had a number of Democrat politicians come out and speak. And so I want to get into that part now. First, let's start with Brandon Johnson and what he had to say. Take a listen.
But I think someone who's heard a lot about this is Mayor Brandon Johnson. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here.
Tell me why you wanted to come out and what's your message for the community here?
Well, it's pretty straightforward. We have to end the assaults against working people. We have to end the assaults against immigrants and end these endless wars. Affordability is becoming increasingly a bigger challenge for people across this country at a time in which the ultra-rich have received the greatest tax breaks in the history of America. This is really about sending a message to those ultra-rich individuals and, of course, the Trump administration that's protecting them, that working people are going to stand united to make sure that our values are protected.
You know what I didn't hear in that statement from Brandon Johnson? Protecting American citizens. What about Sheridan Gorman, the 18-year-old college student who was killed by an illegal alien? That happened right in Chicago, along with other tragic deaths that have occurred at the hands of illegal aliens in this country, taking the lives of American citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, Democrats are telling everyone, if you listen, they're telling you exactly who they're prioritizing. The fact that he made sure to mention immigrants, but not American citizens, tells you everything you need to know, in my opinion. But I want to go ahead and jump into the next clip. Over in Minnesota, where they had Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar losing their minds, ladies and gentlemen, at this No Kings protest, where far left claims they're all about diversity. But if you look out into these crowds, You don't see anything but weird liberal white people basically spending their Saturday complaining. But let's go ahead and jump into Ilhan Omar first, that she's melting down at this protest. Take a listen.
It is so incredible to be here with you all as you show the country just how courageous and dedicated and resistant we are. In the United States of America, we pledge allegiance to the Constitution and the flag, not to a person or a king. I came to this country as a refugee. To me, America was a beacon of hope, a place where freedom wasn't just a word, but it was a promise. I arrived here when I was 12 years old. I could have never imagined the day would come when we were staring down at this kind of creeping authoritarianism in the United States of America. But we are here because Donald Trump just has not chipped away at our democracy. He has taken a wrecking ball to the very foundation of what makes America great. He has tried to intimidate Minnesotans. He has tried to make us afraid. He has tried to divide us.
Wow. This is just so cringe. You got this crowd that is supposed to represent everything Democrats claim to stand for: diversity, inclusion, all of that. And then you look out and it doesn't even reflect that. And so right off the bat, what they're saying and then what they're trying to match up with doesn't even align. Then on top of that, you got Ilhan Omar talking about this is not what America is supposed to stand for. Okay, but what exactly are you comparing it to? Because here's where the hypocrisy comes in. They'll describe America under the president as some sort of authoritarian system. Okay, they'll throw out the comparisons. We've heard them. They'll throw out comparisons to places like Cuba, Venezuela, or Iran. But here's the problem. They'll also be the same ones defending or downplaying what actually goes on in those countries, actually going so far to defend the leadership in that country. And we even hear them chanting communism is the solution. They won't even denounce the radical left that supports that. And so which one is it exactly? Because I don't think you can walk around saying America is becoming something while at the same time supporting the very system you're comparing it to. And so they cry it's a dictatorship while at the same time supporting dictatorships. Make that make sense. It's not just about disagreement at that point. It's really about inconsistency that you see all over the Democrat Party. And then they think putting together rallies like this, getting a crowd together, making noise, that somehow is going to translate into real political momentum. But if you take a step back and really look at it, personally, I don't think that's what's going to work out for them at all. Let's continue. Here's Tim Walz.
I have a message to our immigrant community here in Minnesota. You are seen, heard, valued, and loved. You add value to our state. You are part of the fabric of what is good about Minnesota. And I have to tell you, that is a hell of a lot more than I'll say about anybody in the White House. And I will add a special thank you and a special acknowledgement that we will never leave the side of our Somali Minnesotans. Here's our pledge to you. Our Somali Minnesotans, your great-grandchildren will still be here when that orange clown is in the dustbin of history. You will be here.
You got Tim Walz, a guy who let fraud run rampant in his state to the tune of billions of dollars. And why? Because he didn't want to hold the Somali community accountable. He was more concerned with prioritizing optics, worried about how it might make him look instead of actually stopping the people from stealing taxpayer money. And that's what makes this not just hilarious, but extremely concerning at both at the same time. Because when you have people like Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz, Brandon Johnson, and you really have to ask, How are these the people who are ending up in positions of political power? Listen, it makes you question the intelligence of our society as a whole. It does. But I want to go ahead and jump into this next clip because they talk about how it was confirmed that the No Kings protests are funded by 500 organizations with $3 billion in annual revenue nationwide. And so take a listen to this. Check it out.
From these 500 groups with, get this, a $3 billion budget collectively. And where does their political influence, their political contributions, and their, individual employee donations go, but mostly to the Democratic Party. And that's why we see this silence. And unfortunately, they pull their punches on the issues that matter to you, for example, that you just cited, because that would mean turning against the Democratic politicians that they're trying to keep in power.
So these protests are basically a way for Democrats to generate more revenue for the Democrat Party as a whole. And Scott Jennings pointed out something very prevalent at these protests, and that was the flags at these protests weren't really any American flags unless they were burning them, if you kind of been paying attention, but they did have other flags. Take a listen.
These No Kings rallies actually look pretty representative to me of the Democratic coalition. I saw people flying the hammer and sickle in New York City. I saw Hezbollah flags. I saw Hamas flags. I saw Palestinian flags. I saw trans signs. I see weirdo liberal boomers out there. This is pretty representative of the Democratic coalition, and that's who funds it as well, by the way. And so I think if America looks at this and says, what do the two parties stand for? They got it at the No Kings rally.
No, I think if you Americans were out there, out there, Republicans.
You like hammer and sickle? You like hammer and sickle flags?
That's not what that No Kings stood for.
They had a bunch of them.
That, and that is,
they come from somewhere.
All right, No Kings rally? I did. I went to 6, and I'll tell you, there's so much excitement. 6? There's so much energy. Yeah,
that's a lot of free speech.
I'll get you a T-shirt.
That's a lot of free speech for a country with a king.
That's a lot of free speech. And I'll tell you, there's so.
I mean, wow! Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, 6 No Kings rallies he was able to attend. Sounds pretty much like there's not a king, right? Or else it would have been shut down after the first one. And so let's get into this next clip because one of the No Kings organizers gets pressed by a reporter just using basic facts, nothing complicated, and he couldn't handle it. Take a listen.
All right, millions of people are expected to take to the streets at a more than 3,000 events this weekend as part of tomorrow's No Kings protest. Organizers say Trump wants to rule over us as a tyrant, and tomorrow's flagship event is happening in Minneapolis, where Jane Fonda, Bruce Springsteen, and Bernie Sanders, and also Tim Walz are slated to appear. The usual suspects. Joining us now is Ezra Levin, co-executive director of Indivisible and one of the organizers behind the No Kings protests. Ezra, great to see you. Thanks for coming on tonight. I appreciate it.
Great to be talking, Katie.
Thank you. So, first of all, let's start off with the name of these protests, No Kings. Here in America, we don't have kings. We have presidents elected by the people. So what's up with that title?
Yeah, look, I agree. We should just have presidents. And you can disagree with presidents. I disagreed with plenty of presidents of both parties. But what we don't accept in America are rulers who try to trample on our constitutional rights. I think one of the beautiful things about tomorrow is this is Americans standing up in blue states, in red states, in purple states, in rural areas, in urban areas, in just about every nook and cranny of this country. 95% of Americans are within about an hour of their local No Kings protests. And what they're doing, Katie, is exercising their First Amendment rights. What a thing to celebrate in this country, that we have First Amendment rights that we can actually exercise.
Yeah, the First Amendment's great. And in a country without a king, we actually have the First Amendment and can go exercise our rights appropriately.
Bingo, exactly. You got people out here calling Trump a king, or they're saying he thinks he's a king. They can't make up their mind while they're literally out there in the streets protesting. Make it make sense. They can't. What this really is, in my opinion, this is about a group of people who are upset about who's in office, and more importantly, upset that they cannot push their ideology onto society as freely as they could before with the last administration. That's what's driving a lot of this. That's what's driving them insane. And so now you got these protests filled with bitter boomers paid protesters and people who honestly don't even fully understand what they're supporting, but they're easy to rally because it's tied to Trump. At that point, it turns into one big validation circle, everyone feeding off of each other, making themselves feel like they're a part of something meaningful. That no matter how delusional it actually is. But let's continue.
If it's not about having actual king, as we can agree on, but about policies implemented by our president, were the No Kings protests, for example, when the COVID-19 vaccine mandate was issued by the Biden administration, one that forced Americans to take the vaccine under duress or to lose their jobs? Many people were fired until the Supreme Court struck it down. I didn't see you guys out there during that administration.
So what we're responding to right now more than anything else is two things. One, it is a secret police force that is terrorizing American communities, and in some cases killing Americans, as they did in the Twin Cities. We had ICE murder Renee Good, and we had Border Patrol murder Alex Preddy in the streets while they were exercising their First Amendment rights. That's one thing that we're seeing these millions and millions of people responding to. And the second thing that's driving a lot of turnout right now is this unpopular, illegal, unconstitutional war with Iran that Trump picked, even though members of his own party didn't want it. Certainly independents and Democrats don't want it. And everybody wants it to end because it's driving up our prices and costing Americans just billions of dollars. That's something that somebody other than a president does. That's something that an authoritarian tries to do. Go over the Constitution to pick fights with foreign countries that his own constituents don't want.
Well, to be fair, I mean, Iran has been picking a fight with the United States for 47 years. They've killed thousands of Americans. They fund Hezbollah, which of course was it's the largest terrorist organization in the world, killed more Americans before 9/11 than any other terrorist organization in the entire globe. You had October 7th, where dozens of Americans were murdered by Hamas, which is funded by Iran, missiles shot at bases all over the Middle East trying to kill American soldiers. So that's why the president is taking this on. Also, they're trying to get a nuclear weapon, and of course hold the entire Middle East hostage. But I want to ask you this about what you said about the so-called secret police. I assume you're talking about immigration and customs enforcement. Your group is all about making sure that you can take on ICE. You have ICE out rallies as well. I understand the issues with Alex Preddy and Renee Good. There are ongoing investigations with what happened there. But generally speaking, when it comes to immigration and customs enforcement, we've talked to the father of a young woman named Katie last night, whose daughter was killed by an illegal alien inside the country. Sheridan Gorman is a Loyola University student who was murdered by a Venezuelan illegal alien in the country who had been arrested before, let out by Chicago. The list goes on and on. Stephanie Minter in Virginia, again, murdered at a bus stop by an illegal alien. So do you think we shouldn't have any immigration and customs enforcement inside the country to make sure that violent illegal criminals are not murdering Americans in the streets?
Can I respond to both points that you raised? You raised a whole bunch of interesting points about Iran. I think this is exactly why Congress has the power to declare war. I would love a debate about whether there should be military action in Iran. Again, it is Congress's job, not the president's, Congress's job to declare war. Trump himself is calling this a war. He is acting unconstitutionally in waging this war. This is, again, a war that the vast majority of Americans did not want, that the majority of Americans do not want to continue paying for. We want this president to focus on making our lives better, not picking fights that we don't want. And if there is going to be a war, it's Congress's job to do that, Katie. That's in the Constitution.
The Congress
so
hasn't declared a war since the 1940s. And I assume you had the same complaints when Barack Obama was also droning Americans overseas, and he was declaring war on places like Libya, which was a war that dragged out a lot longer than what's happening in Iran. And I would.
So where were all these protests at with Biden or Obama? Where was all the outrage at before? Where they told you if you didn't get this shot, you couldn't even go anywhere and do anything. When the Supreme Court was being ignored, when mandates were being pushed, when people were being pressured at their job, when kids were being kept out of school because parents chose not to do what the government was telling them to do. Where were all these same voices then? Nowhere. But now that laws are actually being enforced, suddenly we don't want a king. Okay, now it's a problem. And so enforcing the law is too much, basically. But everything I just listed, that's okay. That's not too far.
Say also that the president is improving the lives of Americans by making sure that we are not held hostage by a nuclear Iran. But I want to ask you one more question before we get going.
To that point, that's a fine opinion to have, Katie. It's a minority opinion. You are in the minority holding that opinion. Is an unpopular word that most Americans want out of. That's just according to objective polling. You can have your own opinions. But unfortunately, the facts don't care about your opinion, Katie. Let's stick to the facts.
The facts are exactly what I just talked about. But before you go, I just want to ask you this question. You talked a whole lot about how Chuck Schumer is a weak leader. There's been a lot of talk about how the Democratic Party is now shifting to the left. You're having this No Kings protest tomorrow. You want it to be the biggest protest in the history of the country. Is there anybody who's not welcome at these protests?
Oh, I think it's really, really important that this is welcome to anybody in the country who opposes monarchical rule and authoritarianism. And this is absolutely not a rally for Kamala Harris voters or for Democrats. This is a rally for Republicans and independents and Democrats and people who don't care about the political system, don't think it works for them. We actually don't have to agree on what the future policy agenda in 2029 ought to be, to say in one clear voice, in the 250th anniversary of the founding of this country, a country founded on rejecting authoritarian rule.
I'm glad that we agree that the founding of this country was a good thing. Because it used to be that the left thought we were a colonial power and that we hate America. But I'm just curious, does including everybody mean that you're welcoming groups like Communist USA, who has been at these rallies? You have the Democratic Socialists of America, who talked about violence against groups that they say it's necessary at some point. What does the training look like in terms of allowing these people into these rallies, if everybody's welcome?
Allowing people to exercise their First Amendment rights? Are you saying in order to exercise your First Amendment rights, you have to commit to a certain ideology?
I'm just curious who you're welcoming in, given that there are training materials from these groups that advocate for violence.
Oh, I want to be very clear. This is foundationally nonviolent. And that's not just me saying this. This isn't our first rodeo, Katie. Great. This is the third No Kings protest. We had 5 million people out last June. We had 7 million people out last October. Yeah. There are 3,300 events all over the country. So far, there have been no incidents of violence. I will tell you, I'm glad that you're worried about political violence, because on January 6th, there was a lot of political violence supported by the folks on your side. And I think that's right. I'm glad that you're bringing it up, though, because we do need to call out political violence. And they were prosecuted and held
in prison. So Ezra Levin, thank you very much for joining us and making your case.
By the president.
Because the justice system was tyrannical and overcharged most of the people for simple trespassing. Ezra Levin, great to see you. Great. Good luck tomorrow. Hope the weather's okay.
But those are my thoughts in the update. Now let me hear from you. Drop your comments down below. As always, smash the thumbs up. You enjoy the content. Subscribe to stay locked in with the future videos. And as always, until next time.